Jaffurs Wine Cellars, we've been around since the year of 1994 was our first harvest. All of our wines were made up in the Santa Maria area with our founder, Craig Jaffurs. Craig Jaffurs, in the year 2001, built this building here we're in today. This is where all of our processing works, so we make all of our wine here. Everything we do is right in front of you if you come down to the facilities. The concept of Jaffurs was created, let's say, 25, 26 years ago, but it has been refined, let's say, over the last 2 decades to where we really are a new world winemaking concept, but with old world techniques. So you'll see a lot of foot stomping in this facility, a lot of native fermentations, a lot of real hands-off approach to how we keep the wines in the cellar, but we're very involved in the field, but in the vineyards themselves and the farming and how we approach the whole year in terms of grape growth. But one thing that does separate us out quite a bit is because we use these old school techniques, but we're not trying to make fake French wines here. So we use the California sunshine to make beautiful, heavy, lots of spice, lots of undergrowth, lots of earth to go along with the very California typical flavors of dark fruits and rich flavors that come with our sunshine, which you can't replicate anywhere else. Our grapes positioned, our leaves picked or not picked, the shoots positioned on the vine, how much canopy, and when we talk about canopy, we're talking about how much shade in the vines. And those kind of things separate Jaffurs out because of our involvement, usually once or twice a week all year round, and then starting in about, let's say, July, we're usually in the vineyards 2 or 3 times a week. Gives us a lot of say over how our farmers farm our particular blocks. We do a lot of things with the idea of getting our farming done very early in the season, so we're prepared for when we get heat waves, as we just got here in Santa Barbara last week, or even rain possibilities. We have a way of mitigating some of the negative consequences that come from those weather events during the picking season. And we're not going to adjust things in the winery, in the cellar, just to try to fit a formula. And that gives Jaffurs a little more vintage variation, which I think gives us a little more complexity and uniqueness. But it also allows the wines to really shine through without manipulation, which I think in the end makes a better, more powerful, longer aging wine, which we're very interested in here. And that's kind of the core of our winemaking methodology. So it's really a team of about 10 total, 10 or 11, so a small team here. 10 or 11 of us making about, let's say, roughly 5,500 cases a year. You can see the whole process here. I think one of the unique things about our space is that if you wanted to see what winemaking really looks like, you don't have to go see a video, you don't have to see somebody tell you about it or listen to someone tell you about it. You can come here on a day we have a picking day, and if you really want to get dirty, we'll let you put on some of our boots and you can do some foot stomping for us. You can see the whole process. You can see what the grapes taste like as they go through the sorting table. You can see what we sort out. You see what a pick looks like. And all of that stuff happens in this space, whereas most urban wineries are more like urban tasting rooms, where we are an actual production space. So it's a great way for education experiences in terms of what fermentation looks like, what secondary processes work like, and even throughout the year. Whether we're bottling down here, or whether we're racking the wines, which is just moving the wines from one space to another, you can see the whole process, whether we add sulfur, how we do it with gas, how we prevent oxygen getting involved, how we use gravity to drain certain fermenters, all those processes. You want to see it on a very small scale, but a very intimate scale. You can see it right here. I will tell you right now, the single most rewarding part of any winemaking experience or any harvest season for sure is after the wine's fermented and gone through its first fermentation, when you're putting that wine into a barrel for the very first time. And the smell of that wine, and when you thief it out of the barrel and taste a little glass of that wine, even though it's not even close to being done, it's very young. That smell, though, is usually so euphoric that it reminds us all while we're in the wine business in the first place. Because of our varied interests of myself and our winemaker, we're not afraid to go beyond the Rhone, let's say, purview. We also make a lot of Pinot and Chardonnay. In fact, what I'm standing in front of are mostly Pinot and Chardonnay ferments in barrels. So these are the wines that we would call them Burgundian varietals, where it's, let's say, central eastern France, much cooler region. So these wines actually get picked much earlier, and they don't like the extreme heat. So we've got wines that don't like extreme heat, and I've got grapes that love extreme heat. And we've had 110 degrees here last week, where luckily we got all this fruit in before that heat hit, whereas my Syrahs loved the 110 degree fruit, and they're all soaking it in and being fine out there. Ooh, the biggest challenge. I think that some of the biggest challenges we've had to handle here, I mean, other than the pandemic, which itself is a challenge, but beyond that, we've had, I think the Santa Barbara weather patterns of the last 4 years, because when I first started in 2016, we were just in the process of getting out of one drought. We got out of that drought, and now we've been back in another drought. You add that to some fire pressures, and this year some unusual tropical storm patterns, and we've had some, I would say, a little bit more varied weather than usually you get in Santa Barbara in the last 5 years, and that's made for some interesting usually winemaking decisions along the picking and when do we pick our grapes. I think that's been the hardest part for us over the last 3 or 4 years, despite having 2 decades of experience doing it here, even with Craig on board. So.